Yo, what's going on, guys? So today we're going to be going over some Dark Magician Primite theory. So Primite's going to be a new archetype coming out in Rage of the Abyss. So this week, or this weekend, is going to be pre-releases, and so I think next weekend the set releases on Friday, something like that, right before the YCS in Niagara. Was it Niagara? I don't know. Whatever. It's before a big event. But this is also the set with like the Molcharmy, which is going to change the game for better or for worse. But Primite is a really cool archetype that revolves around normal monsters. So obviously, a good pairing to pair it with is Dark Magician, and there's actually quite a bit you can do with it. I know Laza made a video about almost a week ago now. At this point, you can go check that out for some like additional combos. I'm not really going to be going super in depth into all the different things you could do with the Primite cards. More so, just showing you my sort of theory into using the engine in pure Dark Magician. So, one of the things that I haven't really been a fan of in the recent months of Dark Magician is the toy box variant. I'm just not a fan of it. Not that it's not good or that this version that I'm presenting or theorying out is any better. I really don't know if which one is better or not. But I never really liked the toy box stuff, so that's why I was really dabbling with Primites or Primordials before the name got revealed in TCG for pretty much over 5 months now. Since they got revealed back in like May. So this has been a long time coming. Definitely went through a lot of variations. I've tested a lot of things. So generally, for this video, it's just going to be the deck list. We're going to go over the deck list. This is what I'm probably going to play like at sneak peek if I can get my hand on the core. Um, but the side deck, totally disregard that. That is not a real side deck. If you thought that was a real side deck, you need help. Like, I can't help you. All right. And then the extra deck, we'll talk about that as well. It's more of a toolbox extra deck. There's a lot to get into here. I'm going to try to touch on like a bunch of other things you could play and card choices that we may or may not be playing. One of which you might see is Dragoon and Tamias. I'm choosing not to play them in this profile. Um, but anyways, yeah, let's just get started with it. I think the first thing to kind of talk about is what the Primite cards are. So they're basically just a bunch of cards that revolve around normal monsters, like I mentioned earlier. And really, we're going to be looking here. I can just show you guys the entire card pool on Dueling Book. So they're still under Primordial here, but it's one monster, three spells, and one trap card. For the purposes of this deck profile, we're only playing the continuous spell and two of the quick plays. We're not playing the trap card and we're not playing the monster card. So I'm not really going to go into too much detail on what the monster card does. It's just bricky. It's just kind of bricky, okay? And basically what you want is you want this one, Primordial Imperial Load and Primordial Tremors. I think this in the TCG is called Lordly Load, which is just a really dumb name. And then you have Primite Roar. So these are like the two main ones that you really want to be playing. And then you play a third name so that if you do open the continuous spell card, this on activation adds you any other Primite card. So if you have the continuous spell, you don't typically need to go for Roar. This one, I'm sorry, I'm going to get the names of these mixed up all the time because I've been so used to saying the OCG name, but it is what it is. Just be warned. But you don't technically need to search the Roar with the continuous spell if you open it, and so you can instead search for one of the other targets. My personal favorite is this one, Primite Drill Beam. I know it doesn't say that, but that's the actual TCG name, trust me, okay? So this one is basically, as long as you control a normal monster, or you can reveal another Primite card or normal monster in your hand, you get to negate the effects of a face-up card on the field, and then you banish it. So what this means is that like when you open Imperial Load here, or sorry, Lordly Load, God, that's such a mouthful to say. If you open this, you can search for Drill Beam, which is basically a negate for any face-up card your opponent activates, which is pretty nice. All you got to do, the requirement for that is control a normal monster, and spoiler alert, that's kind of what we're trying to do in this deck is control a normal monster. So we're going to be controlling Dark Magician on our field pretty much all the time. So this is why I opted for Drill Beam as the other target or search target for the continuous spell, because quite frankly, the dragon the monster is not that great. The trap card's okay, but it's a trap card, so it's a little slow. Now, this actually has a really decent graveyard effect, where if you pitch it with Magician Souls, it's actually quite nice. Um, I could maybe talk about this more extensively in like another video where I cover some like tech options a bit more in depth, but just know that the spell cards are pretty much where you want to be in this build. The spell cards are the really good ones, okay? Um, Now, if you don't know what Primordial or Primite Tremors does, God, I'm getting the names mixed up. Sorry, but basically what this does is like emergency teleport, but for any normal monster. So you just declare the name of Dark Magician, get special summon it if you control no monsters. It does have an effect where the name that you declared, any monster with that declared name, can't be destroyed by battle until the end of your opponent's turn. So that's kind of nice. Kind of comes up sometimes, not really though. The main thing that's really cool about this card is that after using it to like special summon your Dark Magician, it just has an effect in the graveyard where you can banish this card from your grave and then target a normal monster you control or that's in your graveyard to then banish a monster on the field with lower attack. So you not only like feed into what you're trying to do with the deck, but it's also an additional interruption. And so that's kind of the idea behind the Primite cards, is that there's sort of engine in this deck where it's like, okay, we want to get to Dark Magician, but then they also have like added benefits where if you start with the quick play, okay, you get to banish something whenever your opponent normal summons a monster. That's pretty nice. If you open with the continuous spell, you get a free negate for anything that's face up on the field, which is a spell trap, right? Or it's a spell card, so it's a bit harder to interact. It's not a monster effect. And so that's just generally like the shtick with the Primordial cards or the Primite cards, is that they help you do something you already want to do in the deck while getting you a little extra, a little bit more tacked on to the end, and it layers different interruptions on your end board instead of just what you're doing with Dark Magician, which is why it's really good to see these cards. Now, of course, the context of this being we're playing this in pure Dark Magician, so I've chosen not to play Toy Box or Shining Sark. I just wanted to try to play the deck as pure as I could. Of course, not considering the Primite cards we are playing, but it's just a little 7-card package, or engine rather, of just spell cards, right? I mean, are we really going to call any sort of Dark Magician build that plays Red Eyes Fusion a Red Eyes Dark Magician deck? Not really. Not unless you start playing like Insight and Black Metal Dragon and Black Meteor and maybe some of the trap cards. Then you could probably say it's a mix, but you get what I mean. It's mostly pure. I'm sure you've already seen the 3 bond between teacher and student, which kind of leads us into the actual deck list. Let's kind of talk about that. We've talked about the Primite cards. Let's talk about how they like function in the deck, what the deck's trying to do. And really, the main thing the deck's trying to do is you're trying to summon Dark Magician out onto your field with the Primite cards. So the continuous spell on activation, mandatory effect by the way. So if you're trying to play around Droll with the continuous spell, you have to activate this first. Otherwise, if you do another search, like let's say you search with Illusion of Chaos or Magician's Rod, if you get Drolled on that search, you cannot activate the spell card, the Lordly Load or Imperial Load here. You cannot activate it. It's a mandatory effect to add. Similarly with Roar, Primite Roar, the graveyard effect is also a mandatory effect. Sorry, it's not a mandatory effect. You can actually hold on. No, it is. You can choose to activate the effect. Like you can choose not to use it, but once you've already paid cost, you do have to banish a monster on the field. So like I ran into a match where they were able to Forbidden Droplets their only monster, so they normal summoned. I chained Tremors, and they chained Forbidden Droplet, got rid of the monster they controlled, and so the only monsters that were left on the field were my own. That's kind of an issue with this card. It's kind of weird that way. But just know that that is a thing that can happen where if your opponent can remove their own monsters off the board, you are forced to like banish one of your own monsters, because it's not just like, oh, banish one of your opponent's monsters. It's banish any monster on the field. So just be wary of that. That's just little technical things that have come up in games that I've played over the past couple months. And again, the same thing I was saying about the continuous spell. It is a mandatory activation. When this card is activated, add a Primordial card. It doesn't say you can add, or when this card resolves, you can add. No, it's just add, right? So make sure you know that if you're trying to play around Droll and stuff. This is just generally good advice. But the second effect on the continuous spell just basically says declare a normal monster's name, special summon that normal monster with that name from your hand, deck, or graveyard. It's kind of like an Eternal Soul, like a better Eternal Soul, but only during your turn for Dark Magician. Just summon it straight out, hand, deck, grave, wherever. The catch is you can't activate special summon monsters effects for the rest of the turn. That's not a problem at all in this particular build because we don't really need any special monsters effects for the most part. And even if we did, you can sequence those effects before you use that last effect of the continuous spell so that you can kind of play around it. I'm still not sure. I'm waiting on like the official card text. I think it was released, but I just want to get the card in my hands because some people are saying that it's kind of like a Red Eyes Fusion where you can't have normal summoned at all the turn prior, even before activating that effect. I don't know how that works quite yet. In the simulators, it lets you use special summon monsters effects before you activate that effect, if that makes any sense. I know I'm talking a little fast. Sorry. Just a lot to get through. But anyways, going back to this, you really just want to summon Dark Magician out onto your field and then find a way to bond between teacher and student. And that's kind of the gist of the pure deck. Pure Dark Magician with the Primite cards as an engine in it is summon DM, activate bond between teacher and student, and set up Dark Burning Magic. And the reason I'm choosing to go for this over anything else, like, say, Dragoon, because there are actually 2-card combinations with the Primite cards that get you to Dragoon. The thing is that I really don't think that going for Dragoon is consistent enough in a build with the Primite cards. Like, you kind of specifically have to open the continuous spell to do some of those combos and plays, which we're not trying to build our deck around that. Especially, I know Laza featured some like 3-card combos showing this card off. It's just a little too inconsistent if you're trying to do very specific things with like specific Primite cards. And so generally the way this deck has been built is you have about 9 cards. So you have the Primite continuous spell, this quick play one that special summons Dark Magician and Magician Souls. These all summon Dark Magician out onto your field. And then you have 9 different ways, or 3 different ways, 9 copies of these to get to bond between teacher and student. Normal summon Magician's Rod, hard draw bond between teacher and student, or if you have Dark Magician, Soul Servant just gets to add you any Dark Magician spell, or really any Dark Magician card for that matter, right? And then what kind of ties it all together is the fact that we're playing 3 copies of Illusion of Chaos and 3 copies of Preparation of Rites. And so whichever piece you're missing, let's say you open Rod and Illusion of Chaos, well, Illusion of Chaos just gets you Magician Souls. And then boom, you have the Dark Magician Triangle. Let's say or not the triangle, sorry, but you have the bond play, right? If you open the continuous Primite card, the continuous spell, and Illusion of Chaos or Preparation of Rites, Illusion of Chaos can get you Magician's Rod, because the continuous spell gets you to Dark Magician, Rod gets you to bond between teacher and student. So that's basically how the deck works out. Now, I don't have exact maths on this, because I don't really know how to put it into the Yu-Gi-Oh! Probability calculator, or the Matrix, whatever it's called. It's just a little too weird for me, because Illusion of Chaos, right, can be either one, but it can't be both. Like, you can't open 2 Illusion of Chaos or Illusion of Chaos plus Preparation of Rites and that be combo, because it's not, right? You can only search once with Illusion of Chaos, so opening both doesn't really count, so it's kind of weird. But I did about 400-ish test hands just on Dueling Book, just like manually simulating test hands, and I would count and tally up how many hands I had combo, how many I didn't. I would say, give or take a percentage or two, we're sitting around 80% chance to open the 2-card combo of getting out Dark Magician plus bond between teacher and student. So again, the reason we're doing this play is, first of all, it's pretty consistent. I think for Dark Magician standards, having a 2-card combo that's quite accessible 80% of the time is pretty nice and welcomed for the deck. But also, it's just generally the best thing that pure Dark Magician can do. And so I'm looking to play pure Dark Magician. This is what I'm going to be doing. Bond between teacher and student. To control Dark Magician, special summon a Dark Magician girl from the hand, deck, or grave. And then you can set Dark Burning Magic. And this, in my opinion, is the single best thing the pure Dark Magician deck can do. And it just gets better with the Primite additions. Being able to have, 6 extra ways to summon out Dark Magician instead of having to rely on Magician Souls is a huge deal. And also, you don't have to play stuff like Fusion Deployment, which fusion deployment had the really bad restriction of locking you into fusions. So there are some plays and combos and some hands you could do where you do your whole bomb between teacher and student play and then still get to link into an IP Masquerena or an SP Little Knight if you want. Whereas if you use something like fusion deployment in the past, that just kind of locks you out of link plays. And just generally, fusion deployment doesn't do as much as a Primite card does. I know I've heard from some people that they're just like, oh, Primite, whatever, I'll just play fusion deployment. It's really not the same thing, right? Because, Primite Roar here has an effect in the graveyard, which basically acts as a disruption. The continuous spell stays on the field. You can use it multiple turns. Not that that comes up too often, right? Yu-Gi-Oh's pretty much over in one turn nowadays. But it can search you for a spell trap negation. They're just overall much better than fusion deployment. So I never really liked that argument or comparison. We're just like, oh yeah, they're just kind of like whatever fusion deployments. True, in essence, that's kind of what they do for the engine, but they're also a little more. They layer in interactions to your end board. And so that's kind of like where the power comes from drawing the Primite cards on top of your Dark Magician stuff, is like you get to Dark Burning Magic, which just fields wipe your, it just destroys your opponent's entire field, for doing kind of what your deck wants to do, which is get out Dark Magician, Special Summon Dark Magician Girl. And the other really nice thing about this is this sets up your draw 2 with Soul Servant. So you get your draw 2 online for your follow-up, or, if you drew Soul Servant along with your bond between teacher and student combo. And it also sets up your salvation to where now you can, on the crackback on turn 3, you can use your DM and Dark Magician Girl for link materials. This is really good for Selene access code climbing, which is really the main way to close out games in this deck. So bond between teacher and student not only sets up a field wipe, but it also sets up your draw 2 consistently, and your salvation follow-up, getting bodies to link spam the board. And this is generally why I've decided to cut stuff like Timaeus and Secrets of Dark Magic. In my personal opinion, there's just really no reason for me to use the cards I have in hand, like all the resources, for a Dragoon, when Dragoon at best nowadays is just a 1-for-1 interaction. And it's actually worse than a 1-for-1. Because, let's talk about Ash Blossom here. Ash Blossom, right? Your opponent activates an effect where, they can add a card from the deck to their hand, whatever, right? You use your Ash Blossom. You've traded a card in your hand for the effect that your opponent just used, right? It's a 1-for-1 trade. You used one card to stop one effect, or one card to stop another card. In Dragoon's case, you have to give up 2 cards. It's a 2-for-1, but not in a good way, in a bad way. You're going neg, right? If your opponent just activates an effect where it's okay, your opponent activates Magician's Rod, for example. Just normal summon, add a spell trap that mentions Dark Magician, okay? And you go negate with Dragoon. You've not only given up your once per turn effect on Dragoon, soft once per turn, right? So you've given up your once per turn effect with Dragoon. So you've traded your one interaction with Dragoon for your opponent's card, but then you've also had to discard a card in your hand. So they're going 1-for-2 and you're going 2-for-1 or whatever. You know what I mean? All right. You have to, it's not resource, and it's not worth the resources is what I'm trying to say here. All right. If all I'm making on my end board is Dragoon, and I have to sink all my cards into making a card that then requires me to discard more cards just to get use out of it, it's just not good. The Dragoon has to be incredibly impactful, and it really needs to be able to survive the turn for you to get any long-term benefits out of it, in my personal opinion. Dragoon has to be a house for me to decide that I want to build into it. And especially in pure DM, which kind of struggles making it, it's just not worth it, right? Dragoon, for costing me 2 cards, right? For the most part, it's you have to discard a card for the negate. I could just be setting up a field wipe. And this is kind of where we're going into okay, if I set up a Dark Burning Magic play, I can wipe my entire opponent's board, right? If they've summoned 2-3 monsters and I activate Dark Burning Magic, I'm using up my 1 card to potentially destroy up to 5 plus cards on their field, right? What's the maximum they can have on their field? 10 10 in the main monster zones and small trap zones, a field spell, and an EMZ monster, right? So that's like, what, 12? It's like 12 cards you could potentially destroy with a single card in Dark Burning Magic. I'm not saying that, like, ever happens most of the time, but, like, just think about, like, your opponent just summons 2 monsters and they need to get into their Link 2 monster. You can Dark Burning Magic, you've used 1 card to get rid of 2 cards. That's infinitely better, in my personal opinion, than having to use a single Dragoon to, like, negate something. It's just, it doesn't do enough. And that feels really weird to say because it's like, Dragoon's kind of the, what's it called? It's like the poster boy of Dark Magician, right? It's just like, oh yeah, of course, it's the best card. I'm not saying Red Eye Dark Dragoon is a bad card. It's a very good card. But nowadays, protection effect, or the protection on it, can't be destroyed by card effect. Neither player can target it with card effects. It's good. Don't get me wrong, it's good. But most meta decks have a way to out this. Like, they just do. Now, if we go into a format or into a metagame where the best decks can't deal with a damn Dragoon, then sure, by all means, play a Dragoon deck, okay? Or even in this build, slot in a Dragoon. Me personally, I'm not doing it, and, well, I said you could, because you can play Tamias. Now, the reason I'm not playing Tamias in this list, and I guess now we're kind of going into tech options and stuff. The reason we're not playing Tamias in this list is you really only go for this card when you've opened a handful of Dark Magician stuff, which just, it can happen. Don't get me wrong, it can happen. But it's just not worth it for the times that you do draw Tamias and you can't do anything with it, right? Like, there's not a single card I see in this main deck that I would cut personally for Tamias the United Dragon. I can't do it. I know it's searchable. I know I can use it sometimes. If I open a cracked, like, god opening hand, I can use this and get a Dragoon plus Bond between teacher and student. But that is just, like, such a fraction. That's, like, such a minute percentile of the hands and games you're going to be playing with this deck that it's just not worth bricking on this card. Now, again, you can play it if you want to. I'm just saying, like, I don't really see much reason to do it. Again, if you feel more comfortable playing this, if you want to play the Dark Magician fusion cards, go for it. But I really haven't missed Dragon Knight. I haven't missed the Dark Magicians. I haven't even missed Dragoon all that much. I really do think Dragoon's, like, the only one to kind of consider because it's kind of nice going second. You know, just pop a card, burn, and then you also have, like, a negate going second into a board so they can't, like, really respond to your effect. It's quite nice. Like, I'm not saying Dragoon is a bad card. It's just that in pure Dark Magician, I think it's a little too resource intensive to make this card, which is why I'm choosing just to not play it. Pretty simple. I mean, again, I really can't think of a single card I would really cut. Like, maybe you could cut Dark Magical Circle and play Tamias. Now, the reason we do play Dark Magical Circle in this build is because we're really building into special summoning Dark Magician. So this is actually a nice card to open going second. It's not good enough, don't get me wrong, it's not good enough to, like, play 2-3 copies of this card. It's definitely not. I tried it. It's just not worth it. I don't want to see you guys doing this, okay? But it is quite nice, especially if it hits, because we are playing triple bonds, triple Soul Servant, we're also playing the Salvation and the Eternal Soul, whatever. Circle can actually hit a good percent of the time. It's still not a good enough percent of the time, but you can hit with Circle, and so when you go second and you hit with Circle, and then you also have a way to summon DM, it is just a really nice card. It also pairs really well with Skill Drain, which I think is the biggest blowout this deck can play naturally in the main deck, which is why I'm playing this over stuff like Called by the Grave, where I'm just like, okay, if I want to just draw a card in my opening hand, or if I want to draw into something good with Soul Servant, do I want it to be Called by, or do I want it to be Skill Drain? And I think I want it to be Skill Drain. It's really unfortunate that we can't play this card at 3 anymore. It is what it is, you know. It had to go. Damn Konami printing cards that, like, out this thing for cost is just too good. Souls was kind of the first card to do it, and they kind of should have kept it at that, you know. Just keep it for Dark Magician, you know. But, you know, it is what it is. But actually, speaking of Skill Drain and stuff like that, let's just talk about non-engine a little bit, because there is a couple things to note. So the first one is Forbidden Droplets. This card, in my opinion, should be mandatory in your DM build. We're playing so many spell cards that, I mean, we just have free discard fodder everywhere for Forbidden Droplets. The other really nice thing with this card is after you've used your Dark Burning Magic, you don't necessarily need your Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl on the field for anything. So you can send those for Forbidden Droplet as well. So there's just, like, a lot of good targets. Going second, you have a lot of spells that you can activate and then chain droplets to and sending them for cost from the field, which is quite nice. Obviously, don't do that with your continuous spell, but yeah, Forbidden Droplets, really nice in this build. If you watched any of Matchy's videos in the past couple months, he's been singing praises of this card, and I completely agree with that. But Forbidden Droplets kind of follows the theme for what we want our non-engine to be in Dark Magician, and that is, it needs to be good going first, and it needs to be good going second. And you also, and this is the big thing about it needing to be good going second, you need it to be good on the draw. This deck, right, still plays a lot of bricks. All right, you have to play 2 Dark Magician in this build. The reason for this is that the quick play Primite card that summons from the deck, it summons from the deck only. It can't summon from the hand. So if you open this with your 1 copy, it's dead. Same thing with Souls. If you open your 1 copy of DM and your 1 cop and your Souls, you can't summon DM. Right? You'd have to rely on opening IOC or Prep, and that's just not good enough. Like I'm not trying to brick because I'm not playing a second one. This is like actually one of those times where it's like you kind of have to play 2, all right? And we're playing the Dark Magician Girl, obviously, engine requirement, and the Dark Burning Magic, another engine requirement, which again goes back to why we're not playing Timaeus, is that it's just, on top of all the bricks we're playing already, it's another card you don't want to draw. Like, you have to cut the fluff, and this for me was fluff, and I just, again, I've talked about that enough already. But going back to the non-engine, is we're playing so many engine requirements and bricks that you can't afford for your 6 card going second to be dead. Like, if I draw Ash Blossom as my 6th card after I opened 0 hand traps and my opponent went full Snake Eyes or Yubel combo on me, we're not having a good time. And by that, I mean we're losing the game, right? Like, I need whatever I draw for my 6th to be playable. So that's why we play board breakers in the main deck. And the other thing is they also need to be going good going first. Is, as nice as it is setting up a field wipe with Dark Burning Magic, most meta decks and most modern decks in general have enough gas to play through a field wipe, which sounds crazy, but a lot of decks do, unless you time it right. So having some secondary form of interaction is really good. This is why the Primite cards are really nice for this. It's like, okay, I board wiped your all your cards. I destroyed everything, and now they still have follow up, and they normal summon a card. Okay, cool. Now Roar in the graveyard triggers, and you can banish that card, right? Or you opened the continuous spell and you search for Drill Beam, and now Drill Beam gets to negate any card they activate face up on the field, right, and then banish it. So you really want to layer in interactions on top of your Dark Magician end board, because it doesn't generate enough advantage by itself right away, and especially in terms of interactions during your opponent's turn, to where you kind of need to you need to back it up with something else, is what I'm trying to say. So for me, the next best targets are like Super Polymerization and Book of Eclipse. Now, Super Poly kind of has the same problem with Dragoon, in my opinion, where it's like, cool, it's really powerful effect, right? Negating a card is always good on Dragoon, but having to discard a card for it is kind of not great, all right? And even then, it's still a 1-for-1. Super Polymerization isn't exactly a 1-for-1, but you do have to discard a card, which again is kind of an issue, but not all the time, because we are still playing a lot of dead cards. The other thing is we're playing lots of duplicate playsets, or multiple playsets. Sorry. We're playing lots of 3-ofs, all right? Just to increase the consistency of the deck, we have to. So there are lots of situations where you'll open double copies of something you don't need, or for example, you'll open, let's say you open multiple ways to summon Dark Magician. You only need to summon it once. So then your other cards you kind of don't need it, right? If I open a Primite card in Magician Souls, I really don't need my Magician Souls to really do anything in that hand. So it's kind of free discard fodder for Super Polymerization, and that kind of also goes for Dragoon, which is why I'm saying it's not like the worst thing to play, but you have to play Timaeus, and I hate Timaeus. I hate this card so much. Same thing with Secrets. I forgot to mention this card. You can play this, but similarly to Timaeus, I'm just like, I never want to open this card, ever. Really, ever. It also only really works with the continuous Primite card, because there's a combo where you summon both Dark Magicians, and then you link one of them away for Imduck, and then you use secrets to fuse your Imduck plus DM for a Dragonite or a Dragoon. Now you can do that, but you're playing a one of for the chance of opening it with a unsearchable three of, which is just not correct deck building in my personal opinion. So I'm just choosing not to do it. And also, most of the time, it's not good anyways, because again, you have to waste like too many cards to make Dragoon, or to make it useful, right? It's not impactful enough. Like even if I have a free discard to use for Dragoon and I don't care about discarding it, and it's not, you know, a breaker going second or something that I can chain on my opponent's turn by setting it, even if it's not one of those cards and it's like a duplicate, I still have to give up a card in my hand and the effect on Dragoon just to go one for one on an effect. And that's kind of the thing with Omni Negates. You kind of see them made to supplement already existing boards. Dark Magician is just kind of a really bad deck, and it's like, okay, the best we got is like a negate. But I just kind of don't think that's true. I think Dark Burning Magic is just a better play overall in general. But anyways, Super Poly is nice. Get rid of like a couple monsters on their board, make your fusion. It's really nice. I like using this with Forbidden Droplets a lot. If you make Garura, and then you send Garura for droplets, get a free draw, really nice. And then the other card I'm choosing to play is Book of Eclipse. Just chainable, book your entire opponent's board, pretty nice. It's not the best, it's kind of the worst one out of them, but I think it's a little better than stuff like Infinite Impermanence or Forbidden Chalice, which are more one-for-one cards, whereas Book of Eclipse can kind of contest the whole board if they let it resolve, so you kind of have to deal with it, which I do like. So Book of Eclipse, Super Poly, and Droplets are kind of my non-engine going in this deck, just power spells. And then, you could choose if you want to play Skill Drain or not. You could probably play like Called By or some other card you want to play. Like, this could even be Secrets or the Tamias if you really wanted to, but I just think Skill Drain's better than those cards. Think about it. Do I want to draw Tamias the Retarded Dragon, or do I want to draw Skill Drain, right? So that's kind of my theory on the deck for the most part. I think one other thing I want to touch on is you could play a Dogmatica package in this deck. So I'm not sure if you guys know, but Nadir Servant plus just Dogmatica Maximus essentially becomes any ritual spell or ritual monster you want, right? Because you activate Nadir Servant, you send Garura, draw a card, add the Maximus, and then Maximus can send Arclight, which then searches you any ritual spell or ritual monster. So Nadir Servant is really, really nice because it's basically preparation of rights, but it's good going second, right? Because going second, instead of sending Garura for a draw, you just send Elder Entity Entis for a pop. And then you also get to, search for your IOC and stuff. Obviously, there are a couple of problems with playing Nadir Servant or the Dogmatica package. Is Maximus is a monster, so it's way more vulnerable to interaction than Illusion of Chaos or Preparation of Rights, which activate in your hand, right? You can get Impermed, you can get Veilered, you can get hit by Forbidden Droplets, God knows what else. So generally, it's safer to use Prep and Illusion of Chaos, but the benefit of playing the Dogmatica package is Nadir Servant is a crazy card that goes super plus whenever you activate it and draw it, right? It's a really good card. Again, the other problem is that you have to play Maximus, and Maximus is a brick in a deck that already plays a lot of engine requirements that are bricky. So it's kind of up in the air. If you really like this package, you could potentially play with it. I'm choosing not to, but you could totally do it. You could play an Ecclesia as just a secondary target, so that in the 1 or 2% chance that you open a Nadir Servant plus Maximus, your hand isn't dead and you don't lose on the spot. In my personal opinion, you're probably losing on the spot if that does happen, even if you do play the Ecclesia or secondary search target. That's kind of how I feel about that. You can play Fleur de Lis if you want. You can play Dogmatica Punishment if you want an even more extended package, but then we have to start cutting cards or adding cards to the main deck, and that kind of hurts the consistency of getting to Dark Burning Magic and your bond between teacher and student. So I really don't recommend this because it hurts the consistency for a bit more ceiling to the deck, if that makes any sense. And so if you lean more towards that style of deck building, sure, go for it. I'm a bit more conservative in terms of that, so I'm not choosing to play it, but you could if you want. Magician's Combination, I feel like I should shout this out a little bit because I know Laza mentioned it in his combo video that he showed up with the Primite cards. I'm not a fan of this card. It really does only work in 3 card combinations. And yeah, I mean, I'd probably rather play Secrets over than combination. And I'm not playing Secrets, so that's about how low that is on the totem pole. Again, I mentioned these a little bit in passing. They're just really not good. Dragoon's really the only one worth considering. I have Timaeus, Piercing the Darkness. Some people might see, oh, you get to summon Dark Magician a lot. What if we play I have Timaeus in Piercing the Darkness? These cards suck, alright? I have Timaeus has the same problem that Timaeus has, except it's unsearchable, and you're still, like, using 2 cards to make Dragoon to have, like, a 1-for-1 negate, right? Which is not even a true 1-for-1 because you have to discard a card as well. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. If you want to play this for the memes, go for it. Same thing with Piercing the Darkness. It's too slow. It's just way too slow. If the draw was not once per turn, then you can maybe consider it. But the other problem with cards that draw cards, for the most part, unless it's like absolutely correct, like Pot of Desires or Extrav, and it works with your deck, is that, like Upstart Goblin, you could just be playing the cards you want to draw into over the card that just draws you a card. So that's kind of the idea there for why you wouldn't play this. I know it's a little hard to, like, for some people to think about or, like, imagine in their head, but it's truly, like, this card sucks, okay, for the most part. The extra deck. So the extra deck is just kind of toolboxy. And because it's toolboxy, there's a lot of room for Nadir Servant stuff. So that's why I like the Dogmatica package as an option. But I also really like Ultimate Slayer. I think going into this format, there's going to be a lot of fusion decks. So Ultimate Slayer, send Elder Entis for a free pop and spin is just really good. Free real estate for going second, so I really like that. You also have, again, lots of options for super polymerization, so don't be just limited to what I have in here. Actually, I'm missing the what was it? Mud Dragon. I'm missing the Mud Dragon in this, actually. What do I cut for this? I think I'll cut Chaos Angel for it, because I don't actually own a Chaos Angel. But yeah, Chaos Angel is an option for, like, Rod plus Dark Magician. Just get the dark-based Chaos Angel. Again, I'm just not going to play that because I don't have it currently. Typhon, right? Kind of last-ditch effort. Usually lose. In my experience playing with this card, and really any deck, not just Dark Magician, anytime I summon this, I'm usually losing. So it is what it is. You might still want to play it. But SP Little Knight, this is just, like, the best extra deck card. It's generic. You kind of have to play it if you want to be competitive. IP Masquerena, this goes into Little Knight. If you don't have Little Knight, just play Unicorn, I guess, right? Artemis, this is to link away your Rod to get into the graveyard, to recycle it. We all know the deal there. Imduk and Link Spider. These cards are just effect monsters to make your Dark Magician into, so that you can go into an SP Little Knight going second. Technically, you don't really need to. I think you only need to play one of these, so maybe cut one of these for the Chaos Angel. I'm just realizing that now. Dark Selene Access Code. This is, like, mandatory. These are the only 3 cards I say you have to play in this deck. Like, you have to. If you're not, you're tweaking. And, like, seriously, I think these cards are more important than Dragoon. Like, no matter what type of Dark Magician build you're playing. This, like, Selene into Access Code is just too good. I know it's, like, for Dark Magician standards. You know what I'm saying? Garura, Mud Dragon, Elder Entity Entis, Arclight, Aggregator, Farigite the Barren Blossom. These are all cards for, like, Ultimate Slayer, Nadir Servant. Just go with what you want. And that, I think, is most of it. I guess we'll do a couple test hands. Let me go into solo mode here on Dueling Book. And just kind of show you what the deck really kind of does. This is not the greatest hand. But let me just show you what, like... Oh, nope, we're not using Servant. What, like, Rod plus the Continuous spell. I think this is, like, the best one to kind of start with. So, activate the Continuous spell. This will add you Drill Beam. You can activate the effect to summon Dark Magician from the deck. Just declare the name. Summon DM, and then normal summon Rod. Activate the effect. Grab Bond between teacher and student. Activate Bond between teacher and student. summon out your DMG, set your Dark Burning Magic, and then we get to link away a Rod for Artemis. And we set the Drill Beam, and you know what we kind of have for our opponent here is a Field Wipe with Dark Burning Magic. We'll have Rod for follow-up. Oh god, Dueling Book, don't freeze on me. Not now. Yeah, it froze. I gotta reload. Reload the page. I hate Dueling Book, man. I hate this damn website. I really do. It's not great. But, yeah, we get to add back Rod here. Tribute the Artemis or whatever. And then we have a Spell Negate. Or, not a Spell Negate, but just, it negates anything face up on the field. Because we control Dark Magician. Which is pretty nice. But yeah, that's just kind of what the deck does. Like, that is the bread and butter play. Obviously, if you don't draw, like, the Primite cards, it's a little less, which is why you want to draw these. They're just better than most of the pure Dark Magician stuff. But, you know, this is a nice hand going first, right? You activate the continuous spell. It just adds you a Drill Beam. Right? Effect. You know, we can even summon from the hand. We can even summon from the hand with the continuous. And then, yeah, just activate Bond between teacher and student. Summon this. Set this. And then we can activate Circle. Let's see if we add anything. Yeah, we got another Bond between teacher and student. Wow, that is horrible luck. I guess we'll put Tremors to the top again. Actually, no. We'll put the other... Oh, what the hell? That didn't work out quite as what I expected. But, like, this is nice. This is what I mean. Like, would I have rather drawn Called by the Grave or Skill Drain? I think I would have won Skill Drain. Well, let's just do a couple more test hands. I'll just, like, kind of show you. This is still full combo. Rod plus Souls. The whole shebang. But unfortunate that we drew all DM stuff and a duplicate and a brick. Again, it's still Dark Magician, guys. Like, this deck is still not good. It's just that now, pure DM went from completely unplayable garbage to now playable. Is really kind of what it boils down to. This hand, same sort of thing, although this is quite nice. I can show you Salvation. So this you could do with, like, opening Salvation or Soul Servant on top of your combo, which I think we do anyways, because we have Illusion and Chaos. You know, it's just going to take too long. I don't want this video to drag on too much. Just do a couple more test hands. You can potentially up the non-engine count, but then you're just going to start bricking a bit too much, like in this hand, for example. I mean, look at this. We opened 2 bricks and 2 non-engine. Like, this card isn't saving us. Prep isn't saving us. You know what I'm saying? Like, we just get Rod for Soul Servant to, like, try to fix our hand next turn and stuff. You know how it goes. This hand also doesn't do enough, right? I mean, you probably survive the turn. Let's see what you draw. Draw an IOC. Okay, that's not bad. It's not bad. But yeah, this is pretty much the deck, guys. But yeah, full combo here. IOC, Soul Servant, Souls, Skill Drain, Droplets. Like, this is insane. Let's see what we get going second. DM. If anything, this you just pitch for Forbidden Droplets to just negate a bunch of cards. Right? Just like Droplet. Send this. You'd probably, like, chain Soul Servant. Or you'd use, like, IOC to get Rod. Rod get Circle, chain Soul Servant to Circle's activation, then chain Forbidden Droplets, sending the Soul Servant, and the DM to negate 2 cards or whatever. You know how it goes. Hopefully. I mean, maybe you don't, and you're just bad. But, you know. Yeah, this also works. This full combo, right? Plus Book of Eclipse, which is nice. This also works. Souls plus Illusion of Chaos plus 2 non-engine. Pretty good. It's a nice hand. So again, this is just basically what the deck does. We built it out for consistency. Now, of course, the deck is still bricky. Like, this is not Dark Magician, guys. Whoa, that's plant stuff. That's my other normal monster focused deck. Sunseed Junislokai is the best card ever, man. It really is. But yeah, that is the build for the main deck. Extra deck could be whatever you want. Again, you could play Timaeus if you want, but I don't think Dragoon's good enough right now, especially going first. Maybe second you can justify this. But I don't know, like, siding in a copy of Timaeus going second just seems weird. If anything, you'd probably just, like, side in a ref package. I think that could be kind of cool. Side in ref and go like activate Red Eyes Fusion. If you don't have it, you don't have it, right? If they don't have the Ash, they don't have it, right? So maybe you could do something like that. Anyways, I've been rambling for way too long. If you enjoyed the video, comment, tell me what you thought about it, like the video, whatever. I don't care. Anyways, have a good one.